Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the BS podcast.
I'm Blaze.
And I'm Shard. And now let's get into it. This is let me talk, damn it. This is technically part 2 of episode 6, where we focus primarily on the gaming sphere when it comes to its current place in our social society. But we got a lot more going. We got a lot more stuff to talk about for today's episode outside of that, and some of which will segue to episode 8 for a later date episode. You got anything to say, Blaze?
Yes. Also, sorry about the lack of uploads lately, both from 2 weeks ago and from last week. A lot of stuff has been happening behind the scenes that are not important to address, but it is important to note that it has been holding us back from making episodes lately, or at least in terms of our usual weekly episodes. So going forward, we do hope to going back on track and giving you your weekly episodes and weekly set of topics. But just for 100% transparency, there's been some stuff that's been, in our wake. But this will happen from time to time. And however, we hope to keep it consistent for you guys, for consistent uploads and consistent discussions. With that out the way, I think we should get the ball rolling, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. Now, to continue what we did for last week, we talked about the current. I think I remember correctly. We talked about the current atmosphere, the current situation where gaming is currently.
It's like last episode. We didn't do an episode last week.
Well, last episode, I mean, I lose track sometimes. Well, the last episode we talked about how gaming has kind of lost its quality, but a certain aspect we really didn't get into. Rather, I didn't say we didn't get into further enough. That's, I think, is worthy of discussion, and that is the topic of political games. Now, anybody with a sensible mind will know that there are games that are dedicated to political commentary out there. To some extent, Final Fantasy, definitely the Metal Gear Solid games, BioShock. There are plenty of games out there that delves into political topics amongst those kinds. But what we're talking about when it comes to political commentary isn't the usual things you would see in things like, rehashed movies, fucking, specific genres. No, we're talking the social political kind, namely the liberal-esque type of political commentary. Now, Blaze, I'm sure you will, considering we brought it up last week, things like Concord and whatever that other game was are good examples of what happened when you let politics kind of control the game, don't you think?
Well, yeah, and I mentioned this last episode, last week again, but I did mention last time, as on a previous episode, about the state of how certain decisions and political activism have seeped into the gaming industry in a way that or at least rather transformed the gaming industry in ways that, quite frankly, has been more of a poison rather than an actual bridge of discussion. Games like, yes, Concord, but also games like
it was like this weird guitar game, music word game.
Not guitar game. The Outlaws or something like that. The Dustborn, that's what it was.
Dustborn,
and it just had that little guitar segment in the beginning, but it's whatever. Games like that where it's like it seems very like in your face, and it's just very on the nose. And for the record, Shard, while yes, a lot of this ties to a lot of liberal politics, it's definitely not strictly their fault. It's mostly extreme leftist politics because I think most libertarians would realize that a lot of these type of acts or activism in this way does not properly reflect their the philosophy properly. These are a lot of like socialist Marxists and the works.
Translation: fucking commies.
Yes.
Get your own goddamn country.
Yes, and when it comes to the entertainment sphere, as you mentioned before, like this is and mind you, political commentary and something of that ilk isn't necessarily new to entertainment mediums like video games or even TV shows. The problem is that, as I stated, it started what could be just considered a more of a metaphorical sense where the game itself may not be saying it in your face, but rather it's the implication, or maybe it's the reference, or it's the imagery. But unfortunately, it's no longer the case.
I mean, I imagine not. I mean, when you have games like I suppose they with Dustborn, where it's all up, where you literally have like I'm sure those who know would recognize that scene where it was some white guy referring to the protagonist as a black girl or black person, and then it's
they were trying to look. They were looking for a particular person who was considered who dressed as like a rider, I guess a bike rider or something like that.
But they brought up the race thing, right? Because in the same clip, what will come afterwards would be like this fucking trigger option that says you are racist. Like, what? Nothing was about what he said was racist. Like, and you could tell that the people who were behind this were fucking white because you have to be completely out of your ass to think this is what is a good quote unquote representation for us. And even if it's presumed that they are a majority minority group making this, again, it just it all brings out the victim complex that these fuckers have, that they think by making a game out of it, they can get some level of recognition or attention. Like, I mean, hell, when Dustborn failed, just like that Snow White actress who got flack for her actions, again, they immediately went ahead and started bashing the gamer community to say, oh, racist, bigots, all that. Like, motherfucker, your game is just ass. It is just ass. Like, we care this way. Developers nowadays care more about politics rather than actual functioning game. That's the reason why Black Myth Wukong fucking succeeded. Like, imagine that a game that is derived away from Western politics, Western ideals, and is entirely based in good quality, good story, and good lore, and succeeded far like that shows that you don't need politics to make a good game. And even if you do go for the political route, the problem is that like let's take Helldivers, right? That thing is an entire satirical portrayal of democracy and socialism, an entire satirical form, and it's one of the best games out there currently. And yet, like, you put that same energy into these other games like Dustborn, for some reason it fails. So I wonder why.
Funny you mentioned Helldivers. I believe Helldivers succeeds mostly because it doesn't like go. I think it's like more, like I said, it's satirical, so it's a lot more the obvious absurdity of the philosophies of both what it's portraying, but at the same time, even if you wanted to ignore that, the game itself is also entertaining. That's another factor about these political like activist like games, where they tend to prioritize the message and their messaging and their activism, rather than actually making a entertaining game sometimes. And it's frustrating because that if they just sometimes some games that actually has it could do well if they just made the game even remotely interesting.
Wasn't there a whole ass I'm sorry for interrupting, but wasn't like a whole ass fucking game engine that is just infested with political activists?
It was something called Godot Engine, I believe.
Yeah. I only know the surface level of this shit, but what the fuck is going on with that?
So Godot Engine, last I recall, was facing some heat because they instead of actually because a lot of people that were using it was supposed to be like this innovative system that was supposed to help indie developers
fee and stuff.
Develop a game or use an engine that doesn't cost or isn't necessarily difficult to use. And however, it had a lot of bugs. It had a lot of issues attached to it, and when people was trying to tweet at the development team about, hey, can you help? Excuse me. If you can you help us out? Your engine is causing a little bit of a stir for us. But instead of actually going out their way to fix the problems that plagues the engine, they instead just either blocked them on Twitter or accused them of just grifting and just attacking their small indie development team. Or in other cases,
that's a smart fucking idea. Just go and attack the people who
use your engine. No, yes,
not even just use your engine. Who's also working for you? That's a smart ass idea to do that. 10 out of 10 brain. 10 out of 10 brain.
And if that wasn't enough, it also the fact that it was also the fact that they spend more, and what makes it worse is that they spend a lot more time, trying to show that they're supporting all these political groups and this activist messaging that only made which only acted like a cherry on top, which made the entire ordeal just worse. Like at that point, you just lost all semblance of any validation with any particular claims of such.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, but wasn't there a whole nother engine trying to be made now in competition to that?
I don't even know I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But there was another engine which is supposed to be a obvious competitor to Godot. That instead of actually engage in the same commentary and the same self-righteous acts that the Godot the Godot team was doing, they instead are going for the more hey, you asked for this, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna make it, and people are starting using that engine, and even more so, take in any direct requests to fix certain issues and get it all sorted out, which is something that you would think is the norm or should be the standard. But no, if Godot's taught us anything, apparently you could just make a game engine for people to use and just say fuck all to actually try to make sure it's functional for your market.
That's called retardation.
That's called self-centered righteousness. Or rather,
I would barely call it righteous. It's getting righteous what they do.
It's self-righteousness because they think they're the best type of engine people can use, and or they're self-righteous because they're trying to spend more time being activists rather than being developers of a game engine for other indie developers to use. They spend more time on that. And by the time you if you criticize them, you're considered the enemy for some reason, even though you're trying to use their engine, but they just want a more polished version.
There was a tweet I read not long ago which really got me into this whole discussion on the gaming thing about how games are treated as another form of political commentary. That just like they literally went on a fucking tangent where it was like everything's political. Music is, art is, TV shows, movies, video games. Like even something as literature. Like I've seen that thing myself. Not everything can be political. Like you can just have these things with no political commentary or anything like that, and it can still be one of the greatest things out there. And all it does, and the more you read it, the more you understand that this person is trying to emphasize that, you know, that not anything abstract from political commentary or meaningless, useless, or rather they don't serve an actual function for the greater part of society. Which by that same logic, by the same logic, I doubt tweeting on X is providing you any more of a function besides making bullshit claims such as everything's political. Because for years, video games have gotten flack for, you know, for being, you know, making people more prone to violence, even though this has been debunked multiple times, ruining relationships, which I could only see if the person in question has a gaming addiction, or just being a waste of time, which is way too common with women. And and while I'm on a fucking tangent here, let me tell you, there's nothing more annoying than, you know, than seeing going online and hearing women talk about how, like, why are you sitting hours in a game when you could be going do something productive? There's nothing more annoying than that, man.
Well, okay, now at that point, I don't disagree with the notion, given that I also enjoy playing video games. I also enjoy, you know, the gaming industry to some extent. It's the fact that it's this paradigm where it's kind of like this. I think my issue with it is that it's this either or mentality where you're expected to only either you do it or you don't kind of thing, where it's like a black and white decision making. Like, I get it, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with having a hobby. There's nothing wrong with having interests. There's nothing wrong with having these, you know, choices in terms of how you spend your time.
Right.
And the thing is, and to be fair, to be 100% transparent, if there's certain things that if there's certain activities that you don't enjoy, then that's perfectly fine. And if you don't like if you don't like someone strictly because they have a hobby or an activity they enjoy, and on top of that, it doesn't impede on anything directly affecting you or your relationships in some way, then I think is blown out of proportion. It's funny you mentioned, I'll bring this topic up because I actually remember seeing this video, this clip on Facebook, or well, it was not Facebook. I saw it on Twitter, and it was a clip from Facebook that was posted on Twitter that talks about how men the men I dated who were bums or this and that, or all my exes who were bums and this and all that, they played video games. But the men the men I dated in the past who were good guys, did well and did everything a boyfriend should, right? They didn't play video games. And to them, they concluded that playing video games just leads to more problems in relationship. Which the irony is that you also mentioned your exes who didn't play video games, but you still broke up with them.
Like, so, honestly, and you know what's funny?
The irony in that statement.
You know what's funny? I saw something similar where it was one where another woman said the exact same thing. I saw it on YouTube. I was just scrolling on my free side, but I saw it on YouTube. And I swear to God, I saw something that was similar. She was going about how, like, there were these 3 women, all black women, and let me tell you, these are the most wretched motherfucking bitches I've ever seen in my life, and I will stand by that, because these are not women you'd want to take home to your mother. Let me tell you that much. She's going up. This lady on the far left of the thing, like you see him, like it all spread out, 1, 2, 3, that type shit. Lady on the left on the video, she goes something along the lines of, like, you know, like she's going about saying that men who are playing video games are more likely to have like small, small D's. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how is that a correlation? And she goes even a step further. She said the top 10 sex she's ever had came from men who never played video games. Meaning, and her argument was that the more you play video games, the less likely you're gonna be good in the bedroom, the less likely you're gonna be very socially active, all that stuff like that. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, first of all, your choice of language implied that you banged 10 guys, and you knew that none of them play video games. And if your argument to work, you're basically implying that in order for men to be anywhere good in bed, they have to go out, they gotta drop what they're doing, not play video games, and spending most of their time honing their skills in bedroom just so they can please their woman. And let me tell you something: no guy is good at sex for the first time. Meaning that in order for the sex to be quote unquote good, much like anything you're good at, much like everything you try to, improve on your skills, every skill you want to improve, you gotta do it more often. You're basically advocating for guys who slept with multiple women, which is like, what? But circling back to games, it was the most out of pocket type of statement at all. And when she got flack, she immediately privated her Twitter, her Instagram, everything, because she did not expect.
I imagine she did.
Like it was vitriolic type hate, and honestly, I think it's well deserved, because not only do you make a bold ass claim such as that has no basis, by the way, little to none. Like it is at best is anecdotal, and all it does is make you look worse. Like you basically implying that that video games is the reason you've had bad sex with other men. I'm like, what? Huh?
Again, and mind you, these are the same people who likely already dislike video games as an option, because a lot. To be fair, though, and not to be fair, but to be 100% transparent, I think it's a lot to do with the fact that, excuse me, that
damn, bro, you burped in my ear and shit. Fuck.
Another issue is the fact that these very same women are. It doesn't help that these very same women are the same type that just hates video games, because one, they likely just don't like it when men have fun or men have something to enjoy.
It is 100%. It is 100% the mentality of, like, there's only three mentalities talking about mine. You know what that is? Like you said, men having fun or being relaxed, literally not doing anything. By extension of that, the second thing is, women want to task men. Because if a man's relaxing, he's not being productive. He's not doing like no. Or two, they likely never played games once in their life, or they have a strong bias against it, to where, as far as they're concerned, video games are useless, and thus men have no need for it. Because what's a man need? Why does man need to do anything that's useless, right? Which follows back to being productive and get off your ass. And holy fuck, there is nothing more annoying than those three things. It is those three primary reasons. Like, fuck, like if people, listeners, if you got a girl who is, criticizing you on playing video games, she ain't no keeper. Let me tell you, because what you decide is your hobby is your own. Now, it'd be one thing if you let your shit be an addiction. Like, obviously, you can't play games forever. You can't play games all day, like 16 hours a day. Like, no, that's a problem. Like, for me, it's not about how long you play. It's how much time you put in your other responsibilities and your necessities before you sit down and get on the game and play with the controller. Because, like, on average, these women are talking about men who are likely not game addicts, right? Like, like I think it's pretty clear that there's a significant difference between, like, these claims are most likely obviously bullshit, because most of the time men are not in a position to where those claims are even remotely valid. The only time those claims are really valid is if you have an addiction, which okay, I can understand. You should get off your ass and get off the game. It is not that deep. Like, unless you're streaming, unless you're making money off of that, type of shit, like, I can get behind that because that's literally your income. But, that isn't the case for most people. So naturally, you'd want to go for like, hey, you should probably not be fucking playing every day with hours on end of your responsibilities. And they're like, you're like, I don't know how my girl feels about me playing video games, but I never once heard her complain about it. And I know she doesn't play video games, but I don't think she's a big. I don't think she has any of a big animosity towards it. I never asked her. I probably would after this episode, but that's something to consider. But I mean, fuck, like it is just so annoying, and especially since like people say that men who play video games are attractive, and this is a large collective of women. Let me tell you something. There's nothing more annoying than people saying that a person's hobby is unattractive. Like, it's one thing if like that hobby is like it's morally questionable. Like, if you got a hobby that revolves around
morally questionable, like there's nothing against in the fabric of morals that comes into play when it comes to video games. That's the thing I don't understand.
Exactly.
Morals have nothing to do with this.
I know. I'm saying like if it's one thing if you're if you wouldn't be attracted to a hobby that is morally questionable, right? Like I can't imagine skinning, like not skinning, fucking what's a well-known hobby that is I wouldn't say morally questionable, but it's just off. Like I would say like being a doll maker, like in horror movies, those creepy ass doll shops you see. Like if your hobby is that, though not inherently bad, I personally wouldn't be attracted to that shit as a man. Like if you're a girl doll maker, I'm sorry, like you're off my radar. But and vice versa, if I was a girl to a guy, you know what I mean? Like that is just, I can't imagine that being attractive, right? But when it comes to video games, like video game is the most active hobby for a lot of men, and it has been that way for years. It's literally the medium that which men gravitate to the most. And by saying it, and by going out there claiming that being a gamer of any kind is unattractive, you're basically just alienating at least 80% of the population. Not being very conservative with that number. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, like, what do you say about that?
Again, it comes down to like, it wouldn't be as much of a problem as it already is, due to the fact that people just started to very much exacerbate a lot of negative issues that plagues these types of conversations. There's really no way to properly describe it without obviously addressing the elephant in the room here. It's like it goes down to a much more deeper issue that, quite frankly, I think needs an episode on all on its own, or maybe further discussion elsewhere.
I won't go too. I think we got deep into it enough now. Like we definitely got to dedicate an episode to this topic, because although it does pertain to games, I do believe that the situation matters way more on a grander scale. I think at the surface level of it. But back to the original topic, since the topic, the main thing here is political games. You gotta wonder, with so many games from Ubisoft to Activision to Bungie, well, formerly Bungie, 304 games, which they try to make it which they themselves are trying to make it a whole new brand by making like new Halo, some shit like that. I don't know the developers behind the new Halo games, or whatever fucking gaming country. I know Blizzard's also guilty of this. Like you would think. After all, with countless records of just flop after flop after flop of gaming quality or just shitty reviews, versus the most well-known, very much popular and very active player base of other games like Elden Ring, Helldivers, obviously Wukong. Hell, fuck. Although it's only recent. Like it's only recent, so we haven't gotten the details about what the changes that have been made. But if you have played the original Silent Hill 2 game, guess what? The remake is out. And again, I haven't played the original one. I don't really know the details behind that game. And
I thought you have Silent Hill.
No, I have Evil Within. I don't have Silent Hill. I do want to play Silent Hill because I heard it's a very good game and it has a character which, let me tell you something. I'm really emphasizing it because it's a recent example. As you know, I never played the original Silent Hill game, and what I do know, there's a remake. If you've seen the remake of the Resident Evil 2 game, which that got massive flack due to certain changes, there's a certain character in the original game of Silent Hill that honestly, holy fuck, like I would spend hours talking about it and I only scratch the surface. It is just massively fucked. It was a character who got let's just say got some serious trauma points that make even the most traumatic person in our modern day look pretty sane in comparison. Like, we're talking abuse, assault, murder, torture, psychological. Like, it is like every torture, every torment, and every single trauma you can imagine. Just put that on one character. It is fucked. And I bring this up because, as I mentioned it in the original, in the previous remake of Resident Evil, I know they're two different games. They made changes. from the original game that, honestly, a lot of players that were dedicated fans that took notice of this were reasonably upset, especially when it pertains to a single character. Now, granted, those changes mainly comes down to character designs, behaviors, like minor things. Like, for the most part, it was mostly true to the original. But then again, I never played the original, so I personally don't really care. I'm just not a fan of anything that consists of major changes that deviates from the source material or changes that are in the form of censorship. So I bring it up because, again, I never played Silent Hill 2, at least not the original. So I don't know if there have been any changes that pertains to the original to where this remake would do to deviate into modern audience, which I fucking hate that word, that phrase so much, but with that in mind, with everything in mind, with the gaming industry having so many flops across many different developers, many different genres, I gotta wonder, what is the goal behind this? What is the incentive to just produce these games? As you
describe it, the modern audience. Now, someone like a VTuber named Kirsha kind of hit the nail home with this.
I don't watch VTubers, so you better give me some lore behind that shit.
Right now, but I'm about to explain. But a VTuber named Kirsha already hit the nail home with this, with topics with DEI stuff with Bridge and other companies like it, or other companies that not just outside, not just within the gaming company, but this other industries like Microsoft and such. But
Microsoft,
the modern audience doesn't actually exist. They want to create they want to create the modern audience in the form of, they want to create the modern audience because they know that one thing that the extreme left does right in terms of their actions, and I don't mean right as in they're good or they're okay, more like they're doing right as in it's effective, is that
so it would be right. It would just be what the left does that's effective. But that would be a more accurate way of describing it.
Yes, but what I said was grammatically correct as well, so it means that. But what they do right in that regard is that they understand that to really get their message across and try to make it lasting long term is to address cultural or phenomenons. And this is whether it be the entertainment space, certain industries to have massive influence on how we run the show or whatever, by changing the landscape of those cultural markers, which is be entertainment or even within certain industries, they don't have to necessarily convince people of today of these type of values, as long as they can convince the youth of the tomorrow. That's why a lot of video games, a lot of shows and movies have these messagings to try to normalize particular ideas or values into these younger folk that even if it doesn't resonate well with the people of our age or older, as long as it resonates with someone younger, they can get passed the torch over, and it becomes less and less likely that anyone competent like us to be able to fight back or call it out. They want to create the modern audience. They don't actually care for it being the modern audience of today. And
they sure as hell care about it enough when it comes to how shit the game be popping out, and they'd be like,
"Why is the thing?
Why my game not performing well? You racist fucking bigots."
Well, yes, those moments obviously doesn't look well in the grand scheme of things, because money is money. However, if we talk about the long-term goals, these short-term losses don't mean anything to them, because as long as they can get, like, for example, you talk about these remakes, right? But have you considered about what they change from the original? Because here's the thing: if you notice, a lot of shows, a lot of games, a lot of classical or iconic entertainment IPs are being remade and redone with sometimes drastic changes to the point where by the time we die out and the youth of tomorrow grow up to our age and try to think back on the classical ventures, they're going to remember these newer rebooted stuff rather than the true original intentions of the creator of those things. For instance, I believe that the game, what was it? There was a game that it's this old 8-bit game that came out, like Dragon Age. I think it was like Dragon Age, something like that. That one of the characters wore this rather, for lack of better words, attractive armor piece. It was a female character, and they decided to change it by putting extra clothing on this character for seemingly no reason. And now the obvious claim here is that, and mind you, this is a Eastern game, and they didn't do this on their own volition. There was kind of pressure from the higher ups of the companies for.
Wait, what game was this again? I mean,
I think it was Dragon Age.
I don't think I know much about that.
Right, it was an old game that came out in the 80s or 90s, I believe. So it's not like something.
Old, yes, definitely old. That is not something I.
Yes, and that's yes. Or heck, let's think about movies, right? What about a lot of these old Disney films or something like that? Mulan, for example. Mulan, which was ironically the biggest example of their messaging of being done right, but instead they took out a lot of her. They tried to add stuff to it that was never there in the original 2D animation. And they also removed the relationship dynamic between her and General Shen, which is something that played a noticeable role into Mulan's development throughout her journey. But instead, they made her this girl boss, like this caricature of herself that lost all meaning. And the sad part is by the time that the younger generation look back on the Mulan franchise, they won't find an animation, or at least they won't find it first. They'll find the live action one, look at that and say, "Oh, that was amazing," but instead, it was utter dog crap.
What didn't sorry to cut you off there, but didn't they make there was two things I want to point out. One, didn't they make Mulan essentially a damn near god or some shit?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I said. They added stuff. I think they added this this magic. They add this magic or Chosen One-esque type. This Deus Ex Machina stuff where she's this descendant of these great women magicians or magic users, and she was one of those similar ilk. Okay. And this villain, instead of it being the Mongolians, for the obvious reasons of it being China and going against the wall, which is the whole point of why the Great Wall of China was even built in the first place. But But no, and they just like added this like completely out of nowhere type plot point that did not actually help her character. That they made it worse.
So
now
okay,
she's this, like,
and two,
Mary Sue type character.
Wasn't there like large discourse about whether or not Shen was like a white man? I swear to God, I saw a discussion. This was during the time.
Heard of that before.
This was during
really stupid.
Look, I swear to God, this was during a time when the Mulan movie was still in development, and there was a lot of talk of whether or not Shen was a white guy or not, which made me question why the fuck we call a Chinese guy a white guy? Like, he's not white. And more importantly,
I don't know. I think those are the most delusional types. But you
like,
know,
you can tell. You can tell people are fucking. You can tell it's delusional because again, Chinese white, they don't even look remotely the same. Even Pocahontas went the extra mile to make sure the fucking Native Americans and the colonials are, you know, even
they were Brits. They were Brits.
Yeah, I mean, they're still colonials technically.
It's whatever. So while we're talking about activism, do you remember the name Aaron Bush now?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, all right. Well, unfortunately, you wouldn't be the only one. You wouldn't be blamed for that notion because this happened. Okay, let me change the question. Do you remember? You would think this happened last year, but apparently this happened earlier this year. But do you remember the guy who set himself, this old ex-U.S. military man who, set himself on fire and died?
No,
because he was.
No, I did not hear of this. What?
Oh, you probably have, but I don't remember. But
I don't remember. I think I remember a story about a guy lighting his ass on fire.
Oh, you would think, but it didn't. But this story didn't last more than a week because earlier this year, you would think it happened last year, but apparently happened this year. But earlier this year, Aaron Bushnell, an ex-U.S. airman, who in the protest of the Palestinian movement, set himself on fire, and like doused himself in gasoline or some flammable liquid, and set himself on fire, thinking that calling an extreme act of protest and that he would no longer be complicit in genocide. So he set himself on fire and tried to make a type of tragic event, trying to
be a martyr
in the protest for Palestine and against quote unquote genocide. But the problem with this whole ordeal is not only did it do nothing in the grand scheme of things, both in terms of discourse or anything that's going on with the war over there across the world, but also people made fun of him of his stupid activism, like his stupid act, and there's so many memes of him being made fun of that the only people who actually would likely, treat him as like a figurehead of doing this. Like I remember seeing this picture of this woman holding this sign saying Aaron Bushnell, active duty Air Force, killed in protest of brutality, even though he killed himself by setting himself on fire, and trying to treat him like a martyr, even though he didn't really do anything. He was an actual ex-military force, so he kind of participated in a lot of like foreign affairs, and that's that. And the news died out within like a week and a half, being charitable. But the reason I bring him up is because recently another stupid idiot, a anti-Israeli protester, or rather just a Palestinian activist, also lit himself on fire right outside the White House. Now, this man named Samuel Mena Jr., terrible name, the last name at least, unlike him and Aaron, Samuel didn't set his entire body on fire. He just set, as far as he knows, he set his arm on fire. And I think the idea was it was going to lead to the rest of his body, but he obviously got medical care and treatment before it got out of hand. But in his what it says, right? He was a protester that worked use your words, buddy. He was a photojournalist. worked by
what the fuck is a photojournalist? Like you be a journalist via photos?
No, yeah, like journalism by taking photos to try to capture moments in history, right?
How's that any different from regular journalism? Because you technically use photos to be a journalist.
Well, we're talking about journalism, right? You have to think, right? There's many different categories, and this is like a type where these are the types that collects photos, and people gotta make reports of that. But I think it really depends on the type of journalist you are. But here's what it says on a New York Post, right? A protester who works for the media lit himself on fire outside the White House during an anti-Israel protest on Saturday evening, and this was on, I believe, the October 5th. So yeah, last Saturday. The man, identified as photojournalist Samuel Mena Jr., can be seen screaming in pain after he set his left arm ablaze in the middle of the street as shocked police officers and bystanders rushed over to help, according to one clip. Mena holds his left arm, engulfed in flames, high into the air to show others as several people quickly doused him with water and beat out the flame with pieces of clothing. He cried out that he is a journalist, and as he's restrained by the D.C. Metropolitan police officers, according to another clip posted by Free Beacon reporter Jessica Kostiku, weird name, after the fire has been extinguished. The left sleeve of his burnt shirt appears drenched in liquid and pink. Superficial burns can be seen in his bare arm. One passerby pours a bottle of water on the wound, video shows. "We spread the misinformation," Mena screamed at one point in the video as crowd gathers around him. "I'm a journalist, and I said it was okay," he yelled as a woman embraced him. A white shirt officer jumps into the scene to scream at onlookers, back it up, pushing some out the way. The video shows before cutting out, so right before the end of the video. In a lengthy blog posted to his website before the incident on Saturday, Mena questioned the media's objectivity in its coverage of the war in Gaza. Quote, "To the 10,000 children in Gaza to have lost a limb in this conflict, I give my left arm to you," he wrote. "I pray my voice was able to raise up yours, that your smiles never disappear." The journalist, a graduate at Arizona State University Walker Cronkite School of Journalism, what the heck are these names?
I can't imagine. Like, sorry for the things, like, but like,
hold on. There's a little bit more left, just a little bit. Who graduated from the University's School of Journalism, has spent the last 2 years working for local CBS affiliate AZ Family, according to his LinkedIn profile. Mena lit himself on fire in the 800 block of 16th Street, just outside the White House, around 5:45 p.m., according to the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police. Quote, "The District of Columbia has a long and proud history of peaceful First Amendment activities, and the Metropolitan Police Department handles hundreds of protest demonstrations, other events each year. We will continue to support those who choose to protest peaceful and safely, and we continue to hold accountable those who commit criminal acts while in our city." I think they're referring to the fact that although they do allow a lot of like protest demonstrations and other events, this was not something that could be seen as good. And the sad part is, like, if we thought Aaron Bushnell's activism was dumb, this Samuel's over here is even dumber, because
I mean, clearly it wasn't.
Let's be honest here. Let's be honest here. Let's think about the totality of his act, right? Let's think about totality and what he actually achieved rather than failed to do.
Achieved nothing.
Achieved absolutely nothing besides garnering attention towards him and his prospects, rather than actually drawing attention to the people in Gaza, to the Palestinians in Gaza. Because even if folks, that you supported God, you support Palestine, you support whatever they're doing, right? Even if you do, you have to admit that any acts or demonstrations done here in the U.S. that doesn't directly involve the people in power or military men, I mean, like talking to them, trying to propose some ideas to help them, yada yada yada. If you're gonna do stuff like this, or the constant screaming out people's buildings or doorsteps to do something, even though not everyone can, you have to admit that this was dumb, because God forbid that the children. I think the children would rather, actual tangible assistance in their doorstep in the midst of this war with constant missiles being shot on both sides of the aisle, rather than some grown white dude to himself on fire and looking like a fool. Because if Aaron Bush now was an example of anything, certain types of protests or certain types of demonstrations doesn't actually do anything and just makes yourself look like a complete fool.
As it was,
boy, oh boy.
I mean, I imagine that was, the case, considering what the fuck happened.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't stop there, because and irony in this whole ordeal is that he talks about how we spread misinformation, we do all this and that, right? But I think the major problem with his proclamations and confessions on that front is that he's part of that same media. So even if he's trying to be honest about it, the irony is that a lot of the stuff that the media be posting, especially the ones that he's affiliated with like CBS and AZ Family, they are posting stuff mostly in favor of Palestine and Gaza, last I recall. So what exactly are they referring to what exactly is he himself referring to when he makes those rather stupid ass claims? That's what I'm confused about, because if you're saying that you are engaged, you are spreading misinformation, if you are saying that you are engaging in this like obvious political false narrative, then you also have to somehow explain to the viewer that for some reason, what is it exactly are you trying to proclaim here that this doesn't just sound like, counterintuitive? Because if you're saying you are spreading information, but at the same time you're part of the media that typically spreads positive information towards your desired side, then wouldn't that mean that a lot of positive stuff that you are expressing are false? Wouldn't that mean that?
That's possible.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I would hate to be like that guy that be a Debbie Downer at stuff, but come on, we gotta keep things $1.50 here.
That sounds about right, damn Cletus.
Yeah. Quite curious on what his intentions were, because let's be honest, it definitely it doesn't actually solve nor explain anything, to be honest. Like,
of course not. Why would it?
Yeah, and the thing is, stuff like that is just dumb. Like, and now the easiest example or comparison I can give to stuff like this is when like people try to block traffic or try to do all the whole like, do all this for whatever protest they're doing. A lot of like these fucking these nature, or what was it called? These type of activists that were about the oil industry and like that. I forgot what they're called. Or these anti-oil activists, right? These types, the biggest problem with them is that blocking traffic, they're not achieving anything. Certain activism doesn't actually achieve anything when you consider the fact that when you look into how people react to certain activism, you actually makes it worse, because people have a hard time supporting a particular side when you piss them off. And I think that's a very important distinction we need to have here. Yes, certain acts can work, but when people are negatively receptive to your activists or your protests or your demonstrations, you're actually achieving nothing of substance, because you already piss people off and are less likely to adhere to what you're trying to say. People are less likely to adhere to anything you have to say, whether it be in basic conversation or in protest, when you make them mad or annoy them, because you already shut the conversation from day one. It doesn't work for all people. Some people can actually use an opportunity to say, all right, you're doing this for a reason. Let's hear you out. Other times, you're just making a fool out of yourself, and just stop. Just stop at that point.
Yep.
Well, one final topic for you guys, though, which is just so we can remain consistent to our title, and this is definitely going to be one of our longer episodes, Shard. Definitely, no doubt. And that is economic incentives, or rather, economic principle in reference to Kamala Harris's plan to tax the rich. Now, mind you this, she is not the first, and I don't think she'll be the last person to proclaim look at that, call in the middle of the stream.
Yeah, you need to take that.
No, it's fine. So, oh my God, hold on. I get them to cut it short, folks, because I guess we gotta cut it short. We'll talk about this next time.
All right. I'll go ahead and sign us off.
Actually, never mind. The person gave up. So, as I was saying,
What?
as I was saying,
Are we doing the show or not?
Yes, we're doing a show. Why are you calling me? But so,
Well, whoever is calling, whoever's messaging you is not giving up. Like,
so anyway, in reference to,
you sure you don't need to take that?
No, it's fine. In reference to Kamala Harris's ideals, to her plan of using gas tax on the rich, the problem is there's a little something that a lot of people tend to not realize. We're not realize when we're talking about these taxes. There's no way to.
Did you hear
to actually there's no actual way to get people to actually pay those taxes or burden them with those types of things. What I mean by that is that there's something called second order effects when it comes to certain topics. And for instance, what's that? Oh, well, I guess we have seems like we have to address something. Well, let's leave this. Let's just say we'll talk about this next week. It'll be a short episode. It'll be the first thing we'll talk about, folks. But it seems like we have to cut the episode short. We thought it'd be a longer episode today, but I guess not.
All right,
Chard.
All right. If you like this episode and want to see more of it, hit your like subscribe button, and of course, share it to all your friends and family. We thank you. We thank you for coming for listening to us today. And as always,
I'm Blaze,
and I'm Shar, and this has been
your weekly dose of bullshit.
We gotta work on that. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye bye.